Good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from Austin, Texas, not far from Sutherland Springs, Texas, where, of course, we just had another event. Hold on a second. Let me turn on the fan here. We're going to get some circulation. Need that circulation. Yeah, so we have another event that's been taking place, and boy, where do we go from here? How do we entangle this? I spent 2.5 hours last night on YouTube. A lot of it was dedicated towards the chart of the event, which I'm not going to go over in extremis today. If you're interested, hold on a second. My phone is doing funny things. Just turn this off. All right. So if you're interested in that stream, you can check it out over on the 11th House Radio Farcast on YouTube. Again, it's a 2.5 hour video presentation, and I spend a lot of time on the chart for the moment in Sutherland Springs, Texas, when everything went down. All you need to know about that chart is the event had Capricorn on the ascendant, Pluto on the ascendant, and Moon in Gemini at 4 degrees, and the Sabian symbol for 5 Gemini is very interesting, to say the least. Anyway, there's a lot that we need to untangle from this. And let's see if we could just back the truck up a little bit and try to understand not just the chronology of the event, but where the event is in terms of the sequence of events that we're dealing with really since the eclipse. Okay? Actually, pre-eclipse, about a 1.5 week before the eclipse, which was the event in Charlottesville. That's where we start. And we have Antifa and the White Nationalist Brigade, led by Richard Spencer. And I firmly believe that they're both part of the same group, part of the same party, part of the same system and locus of control to divide and conquer and to create more separation and more division and more duality. And the populace at that point is far more easily inflamed and then ultimately subdued. On Friday's show, I talked about George Soros. And Soros, you know, if you saw the what was it, the second Iron Man movie, there's a character in there, Khan, who's played by Ben Kingsley, and he has this kind of immense force. He takes over the internet, he takes over TV, and he's terrorizing people. He's completely terrorizing people. And it's almost like he has this almost anti-Christ-like power. But he's just a bag man. That's all he is. He's an actor. He's an actor that's been paid to play the part. And behind the actor, of course, is the true force. Is the true force majeure, right? So Soros, to me, is similar to the Khan character in that he's the evil face of the left. He's the evil face of the dirty, radical scum and all the groups that are poised to take over the United States of America and even the world. But is he really the intelligence? Is he really the locus of that all? No, he's not. He's not. George Soros, in my estimation, is nothing more than a bagman for the Rothschilds. Do you think, with all the Rothschilds' mighty wealth, huge wealth, accrued from the the last significant Napoleonic war where they cornered the stock market in England. And basically, it was a very Soros-like move, by the way. That's the Soros did it with silver. You see that there's a playbook going on here. It's very similar. But you think with all their massive wealth, do you think that they would allow an interloper like George Soros to come in and muck with their plans? Seriously, think about it. That's a club. That's a very elite club. And unless you're playing on one side, you are out. You are gone. You are done. Soros's role is to foment the left and to be the man with the mask, right? That's what he's supposed to be. He's the bag man, the man with the mask. He's an errand boy, believe it or not. All of this hype and creep that Alex Jones and people on the far right or the alt-right place upon Soros is misguided. I mean, I'm not saying George Soros is a saint by any stretch. He's not. But they're not going far enough. They're not going deep enough. No. Because you got to look behind that guy. George Soros is here to inflame. And where do you think he's getting all this money from? Is he getting it from stock deals that disaster stock deals? Did he make so much off of the MGM collapse that he can now throw $1 billion into the open society and all the groups and NGOs and foundations that are connected to the open society? No. He's getting his money from someplace. And I can assure you it's not just Soros money. Let's be clear about that. No, I think the real source and the real power behind George Soros is the Rothschild family. And so what George Soros is supposed to do is he's supposed to create this division. Now remember, the Rothschilds, they don't care who wins. They don't care if it's the left or they don't care if it's the right. They're going to get what they want ultimately, and that is control. This is what they've always done. They were betting on Napoleon, and they were betting on the English. And whoever's going to win would be beholden to them because they supplied both sides with arms, soldiers. It's just all a big game. So what we have is this very divisive left-right divide and conquer strategy, and we're going to have to really move beyond this thing. Yes, are the left screaming a-holes at times? Sure, look at what Hillary Clinton's done. Look what she did with the election. She stole the election from Bernie Sanders. Donna Brazile. Now remember the hierarchy of who gets to say what. Right? Who gets to say what? Who's Donna Brazile? She is a black woman. And according to the hierarchy, I haven't seen Jamel Hill back at ESPN, by the way. I don't know what's happening with her. I think she crossed the line. When she crossed Jerry Jones, she crossed the line. Anyway, Donna Brazile is in this position where, in society where she can say just about anything in a lot of ways. And here she's speaking the truth. So for the pundits to come back and question Donna Brazile's mental health, to question her loyalty, to question anything about her admonition and confession about what went on with the DNC and the Clintons hijacking it, using their money, and as a result of that basically saying this is our election, go screw off Bernie Sanders and anybody else. She's almost unassailable, to be honest with you. She's almost unassailable. So that's going on right now. But guess what? We're not talking about that today, are we? No, we're talking about what happened in Texas. Are we talking about Las Vegas now? Are we trying to unravel those threads? No, we're talking about what happened in Texas. It's very interesting. So what we have here, again, from the left-right perspective, which is a really important piece to keep coming back to. And I talked about this on Friday, that ultimately, one side will prevail. This cannot go on ad infinitum, because people get fatigued. We are not at a point yet where people will be begging, absolutely begging for the chaos to stop. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer. And at that point, it will be by any means necessary. Please do whatever it takes. Stop the chaos. I can't take the chaos anymore. There's too much. Everybody has a breaking point. We all do. And the breaking point doesn't mean you're going to lose your shit and go run to a church and mow somebody down. That's not what I'm talking about. But the breaking point is that you begin to function at a much less higher level. And what happens is that there's a breakdown. There's a psychological breakdown that occurs. Your relationships suffer. You lose interest in things. It can manifest as depression. It can manifest as demoralization. The latent function or the latent habituation that people have, most people have, that begins to kick in. So now you're dealing with the coping mechanisms and the coping methods, whether it's booze, whether it's drugs, TV, porn, food, whatever it is, right? So now we have complexes that are entering into the equation, which then begin to foul up our lives even more. So this is where it's going. And if enough people begin to experience this en masse, it will be, you'll see the white flag. Please do something. Do something. Stop this. And I'm not talking about the Hollywood celebrities rushing to ban guns. That's only part of it. That's only part of it. What will happen is a new order will arise out of this, where freedom itself is going to be extremely limited and constrained, so that people are literally operating inside the box, the Saturn cube. There's the mystery of the Saturn cube. It is the cage. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. And guess what? There are people that are just waiting for that moment in time. Do we have to come to some kind of a clash, some kind of conflagration? You know, I think that what's happened with the NFL is, and the BLM and the Black Lives Matter movement, that's gone. It came up, but it's gone. There's a whole new game in town right now. Whole new game. And they may get a lot of money from Soros, and they could be on the sidelines like a sleeper cell waiting to be activated. But the energy is gone. We're talking about different things. The hierarchy of information in the 24-hour news cycle, that's been pushed down considerably. So we're in a different wave right now. So what wave are we in? Let me take a sip of my coffee. You know how many churches there are in America? There are over 300,000 churches in America. It's a lot of churches. Now, that doesn't count other places of worship and religion, like mosques, temples. Probably thrown about another 50,000 on that level. So we're talking about 350,000 places of worship. Do you know how many motels there are in America? A lot. So, guess what? We've just had an event where we've had a quote-unquote shooter in Stephen Paddock lay waste to all those people in Las Vegas. Well, it's pretty clear that Paddock was a patsy and that there was a lot more going on in Vegas than meets the eye. There were helicopters, there were retrievals, airlifts in and out. There's a depth to what happened in Las Vegas that people just are not, they're not aware of. I mean, unless you go beneath the surface, right? It was a major operation. Major operation. And Paddock was a guy that had a extremely checkered past, and more than likely was a gun runner, and quite possibly more for the CIA. Surprised his brother Eric is still around. There are some people that think Stephen Paddock is Eric Paddock. I don't think so. I don't think so. But we're not talking about Vegas. However, it's clear that if you want to be safe, you want to make sure that those pernicious guns don't wind up in a resort. You got to have a backscatter device. And Steve Wynn wasted no time putting one in his hotel or hotels. What about churches? What about churches? Do you think that now every church in America is now beginning to think, wow, maybe we should get a backscatter device? And the mega churches could afford them. Maybe, just maybe, it might be legislated. Think about that. Not just legislating guns, gun control, and all the other, pablum that we talk about when these things happen, but the actual systems of deterrence. So we have hotels, we have churches. What's next? We already have backscatter devices located in stadiums. When you go to an NFL game, you got to walk through those things. You have to. We already have them in the government buildings, airports. What's next? Well, what's next is going to be shopping malls. Although the shopping mall is archaic, it's a thing of the past. It's a dying institution, but nonetheless, I'm sure that they could wring as much money out of that social setting as possible. So let's put shopping malls on the list. And the other one is schools. Schools. Now, of course, we had the Sandy hoax where an event happened, but it didn't happen in this sequence of events. We're in a new sequence of events. So where is this going to go? Okay, my sense is that the next two places are going to be at a mall and a school. This is where the next events are going to go down. Now, when you get into school, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to pull off because most schools happen on weekdays. Now, they do have weekend events at schools, so that is possible. The mall piece, a lot more easier to get into, deal with, even control the environment inside of a mall. That's quite possible. Now, when we hit the mall and the school phase, God forbid we don't. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not saying that I want it to. Of course, I don't. I'm just telling you, based on what I'm seeing, what I'm able to put together, what I'm able to project into the future, these are the next pit stops on the terror tour. And then all of a sudden, we're looking at, well, we live in an unsafe society. We live in a world where we're just going to have to get used to it, which is, by the way, one of the messages that's being broadcast. This is the new normal. You better get used to it. It's not a enlightening thought to wrap our heads around. So let's get back to Sutherland Springs. Who is this guy? Devin Kelly. I checked his Intellis report last night. There's very little on this dude. Today I saw some chatter about people that went to high school with him. They said he was weird, but he wasn't like super, super weird. I guess there are classifications of weird. So that wasn't the case at all. I mean, well, he was strange, but again, there's some chatter and a few pictures of him from his high school days at New Braunfels High. His Facebook page, by the time I got there, was gone. It had been completely wiped. So I had no social media reference for him at all. He had a LinkedIn page, apparently, and his interests were all kind of socially justice-oriented. He's an Aquarius, by the way. I believe he was born, 1992, I have to go back and look at his, but I know he's an Aquarius, February 11th. He's 26 years old, so he's I think it's 89. Is it 80? I think it's 80. Am I right? Yeah, I think it's 80, born in 89. Anyway, yeah, that's about right. So he's an Aquarius, born in 89, February 11th. So, well, that's interesting. I mean, we can get into the Aquarian piece around all this if we wanted to. But so he does have a bit of a trail in some ways for New Braunfels. Now, I looked up the address of his house in New Braunfels, and I looked at it on Google Earth. I couldn't see anything. It was like it was like an address for a vacant lot, something that could be developed at some point in time. So I don't know. Again, I searched far and wide as far as I could in a brief period of time. Like I found out about this last night, and I started to get on it and try to grab something. He has no background. He has no background whatsoever. None. No background at all. None at all. Yeah, he was in the Air Force. And he was dishonorably discharged. It seems to be the two branches of the military that have the most investment in intelligence is the Air Force and the Navy, with the Army, of course, taking sort of that third seat, the bucket seat, the rumble seat in the back of the Roadster, and then the Marines don't really even enter into this discussion, although I'm sure they have their own version of intelligence. But it's usually the Air Force and the Navy, naval intelligence, Air Force intelligence. So we don't know what was going on with him in the Air Force, but he was discharged. There's no work history. I looked up again on his Intellis report. He has family. He's got a mother. He's got a father. He's got sisters. They've all got a background. They have houses. They've got a record of going to school. Their jobs. His mother worked at Buddy's Pizzeria. I was able to find that out. His sister went to Texas A&M. But there's nothing on him. Don't we find this a bit strange? Was everything wiped in advance around this guy? Were his records just completely expunged, just like his Facebook page? So that there's absolutely no trail, virtually no paper trail around him? I mean, it only lists for him one residence in New Braunfels, and I looked up where that place is, and it doesn't even exist. I might even drive out there tonight just to see if I can find it. It's not that far away. So there's a lot of high strange with this event. Now, of course, he was taken down. There were two guys who chased him down, ran him down, and one guy had a shotgun and he shot him. And it was the one thing that they talk about is how all of a sudden he gave up. And the truck or this SUV or whatever just went off to the side of the road. That's it was almost as if maybe, just maybe, the program was running out, or the program had been disabled. We can get into some real sci-fi realm material with this. Is this guy even human? I mean, I'm going to go way out there. This is the Rings of Saturn stuff, okay? Like, could he have been a clone? I'm just throwing that out there. Could he have been replaced? Could he have been that programmable? And we know now that DARPA has technology that can program people. They've stated it. Is this the ultimate Manchurian candidate? And when that SUV ran off the road and just all of a sudden stopped, did somebody unplug the program? There's a lot. There are a lot of questions to be answered here. And the mainstream media is not going to get at it. They're just going to sell this event at a surface level and a face value. And we're not talking about Vegas. We're not talking about whatever that thing happened in New York was. We're not talking about Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and Tony Podesta and Uranium One and Mueller. We're not talking about any. Donna Brazil takes a backseat to this. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. So this is another event It grabs our attention, throws it over here, and we're going to spend all this time now. And even on our side, right? What are we doing? We're disassembling this thing. And why are we disassembling it? Because we don't necessarily want it to have power over us. We want to understand. Even if it takes us out to the rings of Saturn, we want to understand what's going on. Because we don't want to be manipulated. This is part of the staying awake process. Do we become obsessed with these things? No, not necessarily. We get to get on. We move on with our lives, and we use the same process in our own lives. You see, this is what's really interesting about the time we're in. This is not an either-or situation, right? We use the same process that we use to deconstruct these events for our own lives, for our own spiritual growth, our own well-being, and that takes a lot of. It takes a lot of character and will, and sometimes when we do it, we come up short. And we have to look at that part of our lives as well, and it's a very intense process. But there's always a potentiality for forgiveness, right? Forgiveness, compassion, redemption, and getting to the next moments and getting to the next phase for our experience. These are very, very powerful times. I'm telling you, we are living in a historical era. This time will be talked about for a very long time on this planet. Generations upon generations upon generations after us. Now, who tells the story and how the history unfolds around this period will be interesting. Because, of course, the victors get to tell their version of events. That always happens. So here we go, another week, another cycle, another event that we can begin to disassemble and try to, at the very least, attain some clarity. And apparently there is another one of these ominous 4chan warnings. Something big is going to happen in Texas, and that was posted a day before the event, just like something big is going to happen in Las Vegas. So, and I think, did it come through on 4chan or Reddit? I think it was a 4chan forum. If you really want to dig into some of this stuff, I would suggest you spend some time on Reddit, vote, if you can get into 4chan. Check out some of these posts and some of the citizen journalism, some of the leaks that come through that area. It's very, very interesting. It's not quite the dark net. I call it the gray net, because we can access it. The dark net is very difficult to access, although I'm sure if you wanted to, you could. But here we go. We're not talking about Hillary. We're not talking about Uranium One. We're not talking about Podesta, the Podestas, who are in real trouble, by the way. The Podestas are in real trouble. And if they get the Podestas, if they get to the Podestas, look out. They will sing. They will sing. Tony Podesta, in particular, will sing. You know, they're sitting on more than just the corruption of the DNC. Trust me. Wow, fascinating times, right? And where's Trump? Yeah, he's over in Japan playing some golf, eating some of those fantastic Kobe beef burgers. Have you seen the talks that Ivanka's giving? It's like there's about 30 people in the room. She's over there giving talks about American business or business in the world, whatever, enlightened leadership, whatever crap she's talking about. There's about 30 people in the room. Wow. Crazy, 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 crazy times. The NFL, I watched some of the NFL yesterday. The NFL is going nuts. You know, ever since these guys have decided that they're going to go into protest mode, in full-on rebellion mode, it has spilled over into the field. And I saw a fight yesterday in the San Francisco game. Guys were just going apeshit crazy. Sorry, they were just going crazy. Apeshit crazy is a term. Okay, it's just a term. It has nothing to do with any kind of aspersion. I need to be clear about that, right? Okay, they were going bonkers with the game, And one of them, Jameis Winston, just totally, he's losing it. This guy is losing it. He's not doing well. He's got a shoulder sprain. He's in trouble. He's paying all this money. He was highlighted, and the NFL made a really big deal out of him on a show that HBO does called Hard Knocks. And he went nuts yesterday. He went off onto the field, and he antagonized another player. He was benched because he was injured, and he couldn't handle it. I'm telling you, these guys have become unglued. And it's a Uranus and Aries in action on the field. Anyway, this is going to be a season that the NFL can. I would assume that the ownership group in the NFL cannot wait for this season to be over, because it has been an absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare, from the protests to Michael Bennett. And by the way, where's Michael Bennett's big lawsuit with the city of Las Vegas? I'm still waiting for that, Michael. All that stuff, to the protests, to Ezekiel Elliott, who they keep trying to suspend, but they can't because some judge keeps coming in and saying he can play. You want to know how powerful Jerry Jones is? Take a look at that. Every time the league gets to a place where they are getting ready to suspend Ezekiel Elliott for domestic abuse, essentially roughing up his girlfriend. Now, we don't have any evidence. It's a star chamber. We don't know what's going on with Ezekiel Elliott. But let's just say, based on a pattern of behavior that he's had over the past year, it's quite likely that he stepped outside the lines, because he was doing other stuff that was not really all that, how should we say, respectable. And the NFL doesn't want another Ray Rice situation on their hands. They don't want another Greg Hardy situation on their hands. Of course, there was videotape with Ray Rice, cold cocking his wife. By the way, they're still together. They're still together, and they worked out whatever they needed to work out. Greg Hardy, of course, nearly beat his girlfriend to death in his condo in North Carolina. And he played for Jerry Jones after that. Played for the Cowboys. Well, Greg Hardy's now no longer playing professional football, but he's an MMA guy. He won his first MMA fight. So Jerry Jones is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and that is the team that Ezekiel Elliott plays for. This is how powerful Jerry Jones is. He was able to stay, basically, Ezekiel Elliott's execution for over half the season. Now, whether or not he'll be able to maintain that remains to be seen. But that's another piece that the NFL has had to deal with over the past season. And we're only halfway through the season. Very interesting. A lot of big name quarterbacks have gone down. Every week now, there's another quarterback that gets injured, and these are the star players of the game. There's almost like a karmic effect going on here. This is, Confucius talks about this. And when you are operating with the will of heaven, meaning that you are a divine conduit, and that divine conduit is based on a number of characteristics and a number of moral principles that the leader would follow, and not only follow but embody, then the will of heaven, this divine order, comes through. It's like the divine rule of kings, which is really what Confucius was into. He was trying to create a template for leadership for the various kings in these provinces throughout China. He would travel around to all these various provinces. He'd get hired for a while by a king because the king thought, man, this is a smart dude. And Confucius was brilliant. He was also physically very unusual for his time. He was enormous. He was very large. He was much larger than his fellow countrymen. And not only that, but apparently he had a huge head. So he was big and he had a huge head. So he's in a kind of this imposing character. So he would be hired by these various kings in these provinces because they wanted his intelligence. Like, man, if I can get this guy to tell me how to rule and be smarter, I'll kick ass. But he would always get kicked out because he was too invested in the truth. That was his big problem. Anyway, he put together some really interesting models and templates. And that if the person who is of correct moral character and stature and was able to embody these principles that Confucius would talk about, then the will of heaven would flow through him or her, although at that time it was a him. It would flow through the individual, and then it would bless basically this is the divine right and order and the rule of kings. Theoretically, when the king is aligned with God, this goes all the way back to Arthur in the Grail Quest. Right? When he's aligned with God, there is order. When he disavows God or he sins, and that sin is either jealousy or pride or whatever that is, right? He sins, and guess what happens? The crops die, morale suffers, and the knights scatter. The knights scatter throughout the land to find the Holy Grail, which is the cup that caught the blood of Christ, right? Holy Grail. It's the Grail Quest. Bring it back. So what we have in the NFL is we have a guy, Roger Goodell, who's a Pisces, and he's going through a major leadership crisis. And just the game itself it's not in a great shape. And a lot of people say, who gives a shit? Who cares? I'm telling you, more and more people are moving towards that position. And I spend a lot of time on the internet. I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. So I'm listening to videos about a guy who cracked. There's an interview. I want to put this interview on Facebook. I listened to it yesterday. It's about an hour and a half long, and it's really a very compelling interview. It's about a guy who cracked the Comet Ping Pong pizza site and what he went through. Very interesting interview. I'm going to put that on Facebook. Anyway, so I go there, I listen to that stuff. I mean, I'm scouring all the time. And part of what I'm scouring too is also sort of the pulse of sports, which is kind of the pulse in some ways of a nation. You understand a nation's sport, you understand what the nation is into, their character, so on and so on and so on. So in this case, it's football. And I go onto the message boards, and I can't tell you how negative the message boards are towards football. Now, some of them may just be disgruntled fans, and some of them may be actually shills, right, to help deconstruct this American institution, theoretically. I'm not completely 100% sold on that, but we can't also rule that out. But I will tell you that the response is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. In fact, Vince Scully, the longtime Dodger announcer, said he's never going to watch another NFL game again. And when Vince Scully says that, boy, oh boy, oh boy, you know that the heartland of America is listening. So here we go. It's another week, and we've just shot the rapids of chaos. And this is a situation that's going to require some peace and some calm and some reflective qualities in our lives to some extent. We all have to live our lives. We all have to move on. We have kids. We have rent. We have mortgages. We have bills. We have all these things. So we have to attend to them, right? This is the in the world piece. To be in the world, and the not of it piece is to be able to cognitively detach at times so that we can find a greater meaning within ourselves. So this is not just an exercise of explication. We're not just trying to garner evidence to support a point of view or to deconstruct a popular or mainstream point of view. Right? That is clearly a deductive process. But unless we incorporate the aspect of spirit into the whole thing, then all it is reductive. It reduces us to problem at reaction solution. Problem reaction solution. We're part of that wave. So we've got to operate at a higher level. And the higher level is, guess what it is? It is the reconciliation of opposites. It is the reconciliation of duality. It is to dwell in the place of wholeness. And to think we are whole beings. We are whole beings. We are not fractured. This is not who we are. Yes, we have things come up. Yes, we go through things. Yes, our life can be challenging. But let us start from the place of being a whole being. In our own way. In our own way perfect. In our own way perfect. Not perfect from the narcissistic sense, but perfect from the sense that there's a part of us that if we can tap into, and it is sublime, it is divine, it is sacred. It is the kingdom of heaven within, and it never went away, right? It's still there. And we, in our lives, are doing our best to get in touch with it. And we are challenged every single day. We are challenged every single day by the ways of this world and the powers of this world, right? Powers and principalities, not people or things. So with that, do your best to stay with that place. It is a candle. It is a flame, and keep it alive. Let it burn. Be guarded with this part inside yourself. It's essential. It's really essential. It's the most precious thing that connects us in this world to not just solutions, but a state of mind that is unflappable. That's what David Bowie called me one time. All right. Let's end it up right there. So you know the drill. I'll see you tomorrow, 24 hours from today, for another edition of the Robert Phoenix Show, a.k.a. 15 Minutes of Flame. You can catch my website, robertphoenix.com. I just put the live stream up from last night's show, and I'm really excited about, hopefully this week, knock on wood, the interview with Regina Meredith that I did. I'll ask Regina where that is. In the meantime, you can always go over to Facebook and check out some of the threads over there, and I'm sure you'll run into Randy Moggins and Emily Moyer, and they're always productive on Off Planet Radio, and I love to give them a shout out as well. So use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Have a great day. Let's just affirm it. Have a great day. All right.